Hello, friends. Come on in, pull up a rocking chair, and sit with me for a spell. Hi there, I'm Bobby Otry, once again coming to you from my back porch here in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, where the creek moves slow, the breeze carries the stories of yesterday, and there's always room for one more rocking chair right here beside me. Oh, the breeze is nice tonight. I hope you had a happy 4th of July. Betts Creek was lit up like you ain't ever seen. Boy, oh boy, knowing that all the people were downtown or out at Tybee and having to be in all kinds of crowds and worried with parking and then watching what fireworks they could and then have to struggle to get back to their car and then back into the traffic and hopefully hours later back home. Well, that's not how we did it on Betts Creek. We just had the neighbors all set up the fireworks on the docks, and we all took turns doing fireworks and honoring our country. And it was so... You can join us. But for now, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. I'm coming to you from my back porch here in some beautiful Savannah, where the creek moves slow, the breeze carries the stories. Ah, yes, the stories of yesterday, and there's always room for one more rocking chair right here beside me. You know, when you live long enough, you begin to realize something. Life is made up of stories. Now, some of those stories are funny. Some are a little bit embarrassing, and yet there's some stories that teach us lessons we didn't even know we needed. But every now and then, when you sit back and you really look at it all, you can truly see how God quietly walked beside you your whole life. So today, I want to share one of those stories, a memory from the road behind me that just might make you smile, and maybe it'll even remind you of a story from your own life. So here we are. Settle in, take a deep breath, and enjoy a few minutes here on the back porch. Because this is called Stories and Tall Tales from My Back Porch Rocking Chair. Let me tell you one of more than 1,000 adventures and crazy stuff that my sister Yvonne would get me involved with. Anytime I picked up the phone and she was on the other end, I knew I had best be ready to stop whatever I was doing because I knew she was about to become very needy. And even if it took a few of those crocodile tears, she would start crying and say, "Bobby, I need your help, please." Well, it didn't take long, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it and have some great times. Well, this week's episode is all about one of those times. And let me start by mentioning that Yvonne was the first lady to be named to the position of director of the Marietta Cobb Y. And she had activities going 65 days a year. One of the many classes offered at the YMCA was called belly dancing for fun and better health. Now, as we all know, a belly dancer refers to a performer of traditional Middle Eastern and Oriental dance. What, like me, I did not know was that belly dancing offers comprehensive health benefits, combining low-impact aerobic exercise with strength training to improve core strength, posture, flexibility, and balance. It also enhances mental well-being by reducing stress and boosting confidence while also promoting better digestion, muscle toning, and pain relief. Whew, all from just shaking your belly. Well, shaking various parts of your body as well. And you know, one of the things about the belly dancers is typically they have dance costumes that consist of a heavily halter top, a matching hip belt or scarf, and a flowing skirt, or what they would call Harmon pants, H-A-R-E-M pants. These costumes were designed to accentuate movements. They would have sequins and beads and coins and fringe, all using lightweight fabrics like silk or chiffon or satin. So Yvonne, in her typical way, was always trying to get more exposure for the various programs that they had at the YMCA. And it was never unusual for her to call me, and let me take a deep breath and rock here. The wind's blowing just a little bit. Okay. It was not unusual for her to call me and me to help out in one way or another at getting things set up, and generally I would be the MC, whatever type of demonstration they would be doing, from youth or senior choir, cheerleading, gymnastics, even setting up a horseshoe throwing tournament right in the center court of the mall, or whatever she could get, a store or shopping center or a civic clubhouse. As long as she could get some attention to those in the classes and in the community as a whole, that's what she did. And this was one of those big events. She had made arrangements to hold a belly dancing demonstration at Lenox Square. Now, Lenox Square is a big mall located in a very exclusive area of Atlanta. It's close to the interstate, and where a lot of people from both Marietta and Smyrna, as well as those that lived in North Atlanta, would come and shop, spend the day at the mall. Well, by having the dance class there, they would be entertaining the shoppers, hopefully keeping them in the mood for buying, giving a lot of free advertising for the Marietta Cobb YMCA. So I met her at the mall just a little before noon, and we get the center court all set up with speakers and signs and an area roped off for the dancers. I might have forgot to mention, but my sister Yvonne, she was also one of the class members. So she left me to play music and make some announcements, get everyone ready for the belly dancing class to perform. And off she went to change. And when it came time for the event to get started, I began by telling everyone to gather around for a sight they would never forget. Lovely young ladies performing the mystic Middle Eastern art of good health, exercise, and ooh-wee, folks, fun, all rolled into one. So, as I was given a signal, I put on the belly dancing music, and out of the side dressing room came all these ladies dressed in traditional costumes and moving to the music in some very attention-getting fashion, if you ask me. Everyone watching started clapping and cheering and making some noise, to say the least. And at last, I kept the crowd involved. And after the first song, we invited some of the ladies from the audience to come take a shot at belly dancing. It's easy, it's fun, it's healthy. Well, each of the ladies that were already in the class would go over and take the volunteer by the hand, take them out, and let them show them a couple of movements before the music would start back up. Go. Oh, it's a song. Shake it from the top, the middle, and down to the hip. Hey, these may be amateurs, but they're doing too doggone good. And everybody was coming to the mall all over the center court, from up on the top levels all the way down to where we were at. They watched those belly dancing, and ooh, and it kept on and on and on. The ladies from the class would take one of the ladies that volunteered and just go through the motions, show them what was the basics, how to do it, and everybody's watching. And we had all different sizes, from petite to size B bomber, large, they'll say. Anyway, they started having a good time. We kept playing music. I kept making announcements and trying to keep the people involved. And the class sign-up sheet was filled in the afternoon. It went by real quick. I went over and talked to the ladies in the class as my sister introduced me to them, and the instructor was a good friend of my sister and was so thrilled at how the event had gone and the number of people that had already signed up for the class. So my sister's friend, she says, Yvonne, you, Bobby, and whomever else you want to bring with you, why don't y'all come join us tonight? We're going to be performing at Underground Atlanta. Now, for people not familiar with Underground Atlanta, it was a city beneath the streets. Now, this is a historic arts and entertainment district in the heart of downtown Atlanta. The buildings comprised underground entertainment district in the heat and the heart and the cold of downtown Atlanta. The buildings comprised underground Atlanta and were originally constructed in 8 around the 0 mile post that's located at the property, later becoming present-day Atlanta. Underground has evolved from the Civil War era into speakeasies during Prohibition, and also later an entertainment district in the 60s. That's where we came in, and became the central rallying point for the night Olympics. Now, Yvonne's friend told us, this has long been one of my favorite restaurants in the area for special occasions. The Moroccan-themed decor, that ambient, is hard to beat with dim lighting, velvet furniture, and low sitting tables. The belly dancer is always a fun part of the evening. Y'all join with us. It will truly be special, and it will be a night to remember. I was a little reluctant to agree to it, but this is my sister and her big time, and be able to be with her instructor and some of the ladies in the class. Couple of husbands, my wife, my mom and dad, and Yvonne's husband, Tony. We all made arrangements to meet at Underground Atlanta. Now, it was in Underground Atlanta, finding a parking place. What an adventure that was. I finally let everyone out and said, y'all go ahead and go in. I'll be there shortly. And I went looking for a parking place inside of an empty garage, which there were very few, but I found one. And I sat in the car and waited for it. What am I doing? This could get ugly. And I know I've been reading in the newspaper, been hearing it on the radio, that down in this area of Atlanta, there's homeless people, there's runaways, there's people that would hurt other people. And there was quite a few muggings that was being reported in the area before you got to Underground Atlanta. The entrance to the underground area meant passing by some very savory looking characters, and the area was known to be an area you needed to be very careful in, or you just might get mugged. Excuse me, I gotta have something to drink. Wet my whistle. Wow, you do the same. Now sit back and let's rock a little, and I'll tell you the rest of the story. I was not pleased with where I had to park, and I sure did not like the thought of getting mugged, so I decided that I would play it smart, and I took all of my cash out of my bill. People back then actually carried cash on them, and they actually paid cash for most of the things that they bought. Very few times you would use a credit card or a debit card. Most places didn't know what they were not equipped to take them. Wow. So I had the cash, not wanting to have somebody beat me up and take my wallet and all my money. Took out the essential identification, put it in my pocket, and I put the money in my socks. Part of it in my left sock and part of it in my right sock. So I folded the cash, put it in the socks, and made sure my long pants covered the tops of my shoes. And off we went down dark alleys and streets. Could hear the music and see the lights not too far off, but you had to get there. And of course, all along the way, there was some guys that had some big oil drums lit up with fire in it. They would be shivering around a little campfire. Most of them had dogs, and the dog would bark at you. A couple of them would look at you and try to make eye contact, but you tried to turn your heads like you weren't interested or you was in a hurry. And every now and then they'd say, "Mister, you got any spare change?" Well, I did, because I could hear it jingle as I walked. So I said, "Sure." So I'd take out a quarter, a nickel, a dime, whatever I had, and I tossed it over to the guy. And that made other of the people down there say, "Hey, easy mark, easy mark." And so I ended up getting rid of what change I did have I no longer had. And I tried to put my head down and walk as quickly as I could to this exclusive restaurant. I got in. I immediately saw my sister, my mom and dad and Patsy, and a few of the ladies from the belly dancing class, all sitting around the table. So I come over. Now, they didn't have regular chairs. They had some very small chairs that you could sit on and kind of spread your legs and cross them, do whatever you can do with them, but you could sit on a chair. Your other option would be to lay back on a huge pillow, different colors with dangles all over them, and you could sit there and put your elbow and you can relax. And some of the servers would come around. If they had, say, a bowl of fruit, they could take a pineapple and they would hand it to you and have it, put your lips up. Oh, and they put the piece of fruit in your mouth and went to the next person. I ate a lot of fruit that night. Oh, I did. Well, I sat there, started watching, and they came over and asked for us to give a drink order. Well, again, I don't drink hard stuff, and asked for a Coke, and I was told they didn't have the Coke products. Well, just let me have a glass of water. So they did. The evening had begun. The lights lowered down even dimmer than they were when we walked in. Again, the tables were low, and you had a choice of a chair you could sit and kind of tuck your legs under the chair, or you could sit on a big fluffy pillow and eat as you laid back. Well, to me, that looked pretty uncomfortable, so I took a chair. The food was good. The conversation was quiet but great. And we laughed at the many stories that was being told. Then a big boing, what in the world? And all of a sudden you heard some canastas. The curtain went back, and as you looked, you saw a big man, and he dressed like a sheik or something that you'd always see in the movies. A big turban on his head, lots of jewelry, very colorful. And he, at that point, said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce you to our special guest for this evening." Ooh, things were getting it. The lights went down lower. Then all of a sudden, "Ladies and gentlemen, you have a very special time for this evening to watch. You see, we have a limited engagement all the way from Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Sama Gama, the Queen of Hibby-Jibby." What? The Queen of Hibby-Jibby? Wow, what a costume, what music, what movement. And she danced around on stage, and then she came sleeking down into the audience, shimmering and a-shaking to the music. And she would then go over to the gentlemen at each of the tables, and she would do a special dance, and the men would take money and put it into a special belt that she had around her shaking waist, one table to another. A really great show, till she continued to dance and came over to our table and started dancing in front of me. Taking her veil down, she flung it out and let it float right in front of my face. And she caught it and pulled it across from one side to the other. Such soft silk and some very intoxicating perfume. Ooh, man. Well, she continued dancing around me. At that point, I'm kind of embarrassed and I'm trying to ignore her, but she continues dancing around me, shaking from the feet, shaking from the hip, shaking. Well, she was shaking and shimmering and doing this special dance. Kind of didn't know what to say or do. I just kind of glanced up at her as if she wasn't really there, and she would make with the various instruments, the tambourines and the little bells that she wore, started making them shout out. I tried not to make eye contact with her. My brother-in-law, Tony, he reached over and he whispered into my ear, "Bobby, she expects you to put some money in her belt." What? That's part of the dance. That's a kind of a tip to her. She dances for you, you tip her. I don't think I want to do that. In the meantime, she's danced back over to me, and I kept trying not to make eye contact. The music continued, and so did she. Everyone was watching. Little Southern boy. Sweat popped out on my forehead, and she giggled. Oh, she giggled, and she wiggled. Finally, I tried to whisper to her, "Come back later." She still dancing. The music is still playing, and I say, "Please, come back later." But because of the loud music, she couldn't really understand me. She didn't know what I was saying. And she once again motioned for me to put some money into her belt. Oh, my mouth is dry. Give me some more iced tea. How about you? I'm in my office this evening. It's been really hot out on the porch. And so I brought one of the chairs in here, and here I sit. But let me tell you, I wasn't in a sweatshop when this went on, but it sure was hot, and sweat started popping out of my head. She looked down and she giggled and she wiggled, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Her toes wiggled, her legs wiggled, her hips, her hips and her arms were making all types of persuasive motions. And I finally tried to whisper to her, hey, come back later, come back later. Well, because the music was so loud, she couldn't hear me. And once again, she motioned for me to put some money into her belt. Well, I was pretty embarrassed at that point. What was I going to do? Well, might as well tell her. She was standing so close to me. And so I looked up into her face, and in a loud voice, actually louder than I had intended, I said, "Come back later." She stopped and looked at me. "Sir, come back later." She looked like she had a quiz or didn't understand what I was saying. I pointed down to my sock and I said, "Come back later." She started to dance and then stopped again. She's pointed to her belt. "You're gonna have to come back later. It's in my sock." And when I told her it was in my sock, the music stopped and she stopped and everyone was laughing. And she looked down at me and replied, "Oh, kind sir, what's in your sock?" My lips were very dry right then. "Sir, what's in your sock?" My money. She twisted her head and she said, "Why money in sock?" Well, I didn't want to get robbed. She smiled. She wiggled a little and she said, "Oh, kind sir, I don't want to rob you, but for a $20 bill, I'll set you free." The place was roaring with laughter. My face was as red as a cooked lobster. I had no choice. I reached down into my sock, pulled out the folded money clip, pulled out a 20, and I reached over and I put it in her hand. But she motioned to her belt and started to wiggling and giggling again. So I followed tradition, sweating, embarrassed, and I slowly took the $20 bill and very carefully inserted it into her belt. And then she shook her hips, and then she shook her head, but her head was going in a no-no fashion, and a finger was pointing at me as if she was trying to tell me something. Well, I looked back in her eyes, and she was still doing the belly dance, all the motions. And as she came back next to me, she pointed down at my other foot. She said, "Sock, have money?" "Yes." "Good." So I slowly reached down and quickly produced the other folded money and took out another $20 bill. It's going to be expensive dinner, and I ain't really eating that much. So I took out the $20 bill. She smiled again, and she pointed back to her belt. And this time I found the spot on her belt, inserted the 20, shyly looked back into her gazing eyes, and then without a word, she reached down and kissed me on the forehead and started dancing to the next table. Now I have to admit, we did have fun. We did enjoy the dinner and the show, but I never ever went back to a belly dance restaurant again. And my sister never asked me to MC another belly dancing demonstration at the mall or anywhere else again. Oh, what an experience. One of those things you had to be there to truly appreciate what was happening. Well, some things did happen, but it's not for this time. That's for another story. But let me tell you, if you ever have an opportunity to go to one of these special restaurants that feature some really interesting food, as well as some very attractive, very different, very energetic dancers, I think you should try it for a great night of entertainment. But let me caution you, when you don't put your folding money in your socks. As I look back over all the dinners, all the laughs, all those crazy adventures that we went on, I've come to realize that the greatest blessing wasn't what was on the menu. It was who was sitting around the table. God knew exactly what he was doing when he gave us family and friends. That's why the psalmist wrote, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for the brethren to dwell together in unity." So this week, call somebody, visit somebody, take someone to lunch. I've got an idea. Go sit with them on the porch and make another memory. One day, today's ordinary moments will become tomorrow's treasured stories. So, until next time, this is Bobby Yautry from my back porch rocking chair, reminding you that life is better when it's shared. And always remember, our back porch, there's always room for one more. God bless you. Look forward to speaking with you again about some of those memories, some of those adventures, some of those crazy things that we did to bring us where we are today. God bless. Have a super blessed week. This is Bobby Yautry saying, let Jesus in. Let freedom begin.